Well, good morning everybody. It's Phil here and I'm pleased to have you on my walk this morning. It's late February. It's a gorgeous sunny morning and I'm down here in the far southwest of England in the county of Devon, and I live in a town called Tiverton, which gets its name from two ford ton. Tiverton has two rivers, the Lomond and the Exe, and where they ford, the original settlement of Tiverton was formed, and the traditional name for a settlement in Anglo-Saxon times was a ton. So ton meant settlement. That ended up being converted to T-O-N, so we have Tiverton. My birthplace is a small town not far from here called Crediton, and the same principle applies. It was the ton on the Creedy, which is the river that goes through Crediton. Anyway, so we're going to head towards the Great Western Canal and going to take a short trip down the canal, as it's quite long, so we're going to do a shortened version of it, but hopefully pick up some of the main features and some of its history. And when we get to the end, I'm going to show you the cauldrons of hell, so you better keep watching. Morning. So I'm actually on a railway track here, and this was part of the Exe Valley Railway, and it opened in 1848, and it connected local communities really. So there's a place north of here called Bampton, and it came down through Bampton, came through Tiverton, and went all the way down the Exe Valley to Bramford Speke, and then joined up with the main Bristol and Exeter main lines. So it was part of an artery or a big network, rail network we had at the time in the 1800s. And of course, all the rail at that time would have been steam. Now in Tiverton, the locals called Tiverton Tivy, they had a little local steam engine which was kind of a shuttle, like a shuttle bus really, and it was called the Tivy Bumper, and I imagine that was quite a treat to jump on the Tivy Bumper like you would a local bus. And unfortunately the railway was closed eventually in 1963 as a result of the Beecham report. Now at the time, Winston Churchill was the minister at the Department of Trade, and he argued at the time that the railways didn't have a future unless they were rationalised and amalgamated. And they said the issues were a lack of rolling stock, the coming of the roads, inefficiency, productivity, and a whole slew of other reasons. So they appointed a guy called Dr. Beeching, and he was a doctor in terms of being a doctor of physics. He was also an engineer, an accountant, and a very fine intellectual and efficient man, I'm sure. But he did the worst disservice to the rail network at the time, and when he completed his review, the result was 4,000 miles of track being removed from the system. And along with that, of course, station closures as well. Apparently in Tivot there was a massive protest, and I think there probably would have been around the country about this by rural communities who were losing their form of transportation. Anyway, they didn't listen to the people, nothing new there, and a further 2,000 miles were lost by the end of the 60s, and Tiverton's railway was lost in that second wave of closures. And it's kind of indictment really of short-term thinking, isn't it? You know, it doesn't seem like people at that time had any concept of heritage or legacy, and you wonder whether they've learned anything over the years. And I imagine the railway yards where the wonderful, enthusiastic heritage railway enthusiasts spend many a weekend toiling to keep the steam engines alive. I'm sure when they have a break, they have a picture of Dr. Beeching on their dartboard, and he's sort of quite a vilified person, really. So we're going to keep on going along here. It's a bit of a stretch, but I've got a cunning plan to keep you entertained. Morning. So this stretch of the line was paved for walkers, dog walkers, cyclists, and as an amenity for the local population, and that was a good decision. If we did have to lose the railway, then at least make some of the tracks into wonderful walkways and cycle paths, which is what we have here.
Which makes me concerned that Mum hasn't had.
Someone else is doing a commentary there on obesity, and I guess with the lockdown, weight gain has been one of the issues, and the weather's been not great here. We've had a cold spell, and then days and days of rain, grey skies and wind. So it's lovely to see that we've got a bit of a bright day back to do this walk. So it's a bit of a stretch still to the beginning of the walk proper, which is the canal, and just by their very nature, I'm sure you can hear some of the birds, which is lovely. The landscape's not going to change for a little while. So what I thought I would do to keep you entertained, because I know you want to keep watching, and I know you're dying to know what the cauldrons of hell are, I'm going to play you a little bit of music, my music, and I'm going to show you a kind of a montage of images of the canal, different times of the year, and that will give you another perspective of the life of the canal through the seasons, and There are a couple of images in there which I'll put towards the end, which show the day when the canal almost ran dry, and that's not really an exaggeration, in that one particular winter we had a huge amount of rain and the water levels got very high, and there was one piece of the bank that was clearly a bit weak and it breached, and the water came gushing out the side onto the fields below. And it did threaten some of the properties and communities that were below the height of the canal as such, and so they got out quite quickly to shore it up. But also, of course, all the fish were draining out of the canal as well, and they made a Herculean effort to kind of literally mop up, hoover up, scoop up the fish and put them back into the canal, which I think was a wonderful gesture. Hello. The canal is popular with coarse anglers, and they have competitions in the summer, and I'm not sure what they catch, having never been an angler, and I do hope it's just match fishing and they put the fish back in, or at least there's some sort of restocking plan or program. Anyway, when I get through this, underneath this bridge, some quite nice road bridges that go over the railway line, and we've got water everywhere. We've had a lot of rain in the last few weeks. You can see it sitting there on the left, and I'm going to sign off in a moment. Now, there's an old term in the early days of TV. We all had inside aerials. Some people called them rabbit ears. And if the signal wasn't great, someone would have to stand behind the TV and play around with the rabbit ears to get the picture clear. And TVs in those days, those of you can remember, were huge things, and they were very deep, and so apart from the rabbit ears, it was perfectly possible to put a bowl of fruit, your wedding pictures, just about anything else you wanted on top of the TV. It was kind of a haloed place for keeping things that you really valued, as it became the focal point of the room in those early days. Now, apart from fiddling around with rabbit ears to get your picture as good as possible, quite often the signal would go together, and then the two TV companies at the time, BBC and ITV, would put up a test card, what they call a test card, which I'm going to show you shortly. And the idea of this was that the engineers could figure out what was going wrong, get the contrast and the picture good again, and bring everything back. And when they put the test card up, they always had a up came along with the test card the immortal words, "Normal service will be resumed as soon as possible." So with those immortal words of normal service will be resumed as soon as possible, I'll leave you for a moment to listen to a bit of my music, have a look at the test card, and watch this montage of images of the canal. And then I'll be back on again when we get closer to the canal and the landscape changes. So welcome back. Normal service is resumed and we've got to the end of the railway line now, and it kind of comes to a rather sad end in a way. My goodness, there's a lot of water here, and it sort of is, I'm not sure whether it's actually blocked off, but it's certainly not accessible to go much further than underneath the bridge. And you can see down there, hopefully, the area underneath the bridge. Thank you, good morning. So here we are now going over the road bridge, and when I walk up here I often look across the fields here and try and figure out where the railway would have continued on, and perhaps you can figure it out. I can't really see. You can't see any sign of the tracks at all, but there's an avenue of trees up there, and I'm wondering whether the train went to the left of that avenue of trees as it went on. I'm not really sure, but when you consider it was shut down in the early 60s, it's a long time for nature to kind of reclaim, and I'm sure the farmers have reclaimed it as well. Shame, part of our history gone, but thanks to the Heritage Railway people, who are very passionate They are keeping some of our heritage railways alive and even extending the track where they can. So we're really right out in the country now. We're about 2.5 miles from Tiverton, having come along the track as far as we can. So I'm now heading up to the canal. Sounds strange to say you're heading up to a canal when you think water normally finds its lowest point, but that's engineering for you. I should remind you, while getting up there, it's the migration of toads in February. Did you know that? So they're coming out of their hibernation and heading back to garden ponds. So if you've got a garden pond, I think you should this weekend put up some bunting and a welcome back sign. So this bridge ahead of us is a bridge over the canal, and we're going to head down onto the canal here and start the walk properly, so I should say. So here we are. And this park is looked after by Devon County Council, and there's quite a nice little sign here that tells us to have some attention here, that there's horse-drawn barges operating in this zone. That's kind of nice, isn't it? Good morning. So, here we go. Good morning. Thank you very much. So this canal was built to transport limestone down from quarries north of here, and so it was originally built to link up with the canal system which comes down as far as Taunton, but in a kind of a quirk of history in a way, it never got finished, and so it was built in 1810, and as I say, it was never completed because transport by canal was superseded by railways. And if I look back at the bridge there, it's a really nice view. The canal itself is 11.3 miles long, so it goes another 8 or so miles in that direction. And as I say, it's landlocked, and there are no locks on it because there's no gradients on it, so there's no need to put in any locks. So it's quite unusual in that respect. And we come to the first kind of point of interest, really, if I can get this panel reasonably, yeah, hope you can read that. So this is called the Canberra bomber crash, and in 2003 a stretch of the canal was being dredged, and they came across bits of aircraft, and it was investigated further, and they dug out the silt. You can see the picture of the dredger there digging out the silt, and they discovered more and more bits from this aircraft. And what it was the Canberra bomber was on a training trip from Germany, and it was on a low navigation flight, and coming to said there somewhere, coming to Chivener, I think it was, and it lost altitude and there was engine failure, and they sent out a mayday, and apparently local people saw it and it veered away from the town, not wanting to crash into the town, I presume, and found this stretch of water and ditched in the canal. Unfortunately, the pilot and the navigator were both killed in the crash, and the bodies and most of the wreckage were recovered from the canal in the following week. So really quite sad, and I guess brave of the pilot to try and avoid any loss of life. So that's the Canberra bomber crash. So I'm hoping to hook up with some ducks along here somewhere, and also see if we can find any swans. And my favourite birds along here are moorhens. Good morning, ladies. There are also quite a lot of wild bird lovers living in the area, because they have put up feeders at various places, which I have been known to top up during the winter months as well, but I don't have any bird seed with me today. Quite tranquil and quiet this morning, which is nice. I came out a bit earlier to sort of try and avoid too many runners and dogs and walkers, because it's so popular, and you can see why, particularly on a morning like this. And here we have a feeder. Unfortunately, it is empty. See if there's any more. I need to come back and fill that one up with some fat balls. Of course, there are squirrels here. Wow, hear that? What a wonderful sound. Gorgeous. Oh, there's a bird on that feeder. A little green tit was on that feeder. Not much left in there either. And there's some coconut fat ball kind of containers there as well. This one's been filled up by the looks of it. Okay, on we go. So what was I talking about? The ducks. Yes, the ducks. Morning. So I splashed out a few days ago. Did you notice the pun? Splashed out on some duck and swan food. Now I didn't know you could buy duck and swan food. So did you hear that? Woodpecker. Look, hear that, woodpecker. Fantastic. Wow. We're getting some great bird songs sound this morning. And apparently my friend Linda keeps telling me every time she's up here she sees a kingfisher. I haven't seen one. And excuse me. And here we have another bird feeder. And we've also got a kind of a little memorial, if you like, to nice bunch of flowers, and the bench is commemorates Hazel and Wilson. And quite a lot of the benches along here have got commemorative plaques on them, which is really nice. And there we have a lovely view out over the countryside. And the woodpecker is still pecking away in the background. Bliss. This lady's dog's going to have a nice swim this morning.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Hello, you! So where was I? I was talking about ducks and swans and food and stuff, wasn't I? Yes. So I splashed out, did you get the pun? And bought some of this duck and swan food. And its kind of USP, unique selling point, is it floats. Because if you try and throw birdseed to the ducks, it sinks, and although they can swim, they're going to miss most of it. So this floats. And when I got it, opened up the packet and looked at it, I thought, I've been done. This is cat litter. That's what it looked like to me. Anyway, I guess if you had too much of the stuff and you had a cat, you could probably top up your cat litter with it. And it's amazing how the land dries out quickly, because a few days ago, when we'd had a lot of rain, this field on the left here, which I'll try and show you. Keep going, it's okay. Morning.
Good morning.
This field on the left was absolutely soaking wet, just full of water, and in the last 2 or 3 days it's dried out quite a bit. Right, raising the pace a little bit here. Oh, we've got some catkins. Wow, sign of spring. Can you hear that water? I think that might have been one of the channels that was dug to run off excess water from the canal, not sure, but they did quite a bit of work to make sure. They have sluices along here that designed to control the water levels, but that particular year it was so bad that even they didn't help. We have a couple of ducks. Let's just put them to the test, shall we? Generally speaking, they're pretty vigilant, these ducks. If they see someone stop, they usually get an idea there's some food coming. So let's see what happens. Here they come. Here they come. There's a moorhen. There's a moorhen. They're quite shy and they get bullied, unfortunately. But they're both there now. There's one there now. So we'll see if we can find a swan or two, because I know there's some on the canal. Oh, here we have another kind of memorial coming up here. This time to Maggie Fazy, and there's the bouquet, kind of nice too. Good morning. Morning.
Hello.
Now we're kind of leaving the country now, but we're sort of coming back to the outskirts of the town. You can see the rooftops on the right. Good morning.
Morning.
So these reeds by the side of the canal are look a little bit dead and dejected now, but give them a few weeks and they will be back up quite tall and providing really good habitat and cover for the bird life. Though the canal's been reasonably straight so far, and as we come back into the town, there was a story of the Bishop of Exeter. When he learned that they were going to build a canal not far from his rectory, he complained, and such was the power of the church in those days, I guess, that they actually dug a loop so that the canal was far enough away from the rectory. I'm sure the bishop wouldn't want to look out his window and see hard-working men bringing stone barges down the canal to the lime kilns at the end, which is where we're heading. So they built a loop. I think it's a bit further up. Quite incredible, really. And then the farmers got in on the act because they complained that the canal would divide their lands. So the authorities at the time had to build wooden swing bridges across the canal so that they could get across, presumably with their livestock and stuff. But they had to swing because the stone barges had to be able to come through the canal as well. So quite a bit of controversy. I guess it's no worse than what's happening with HS2 at the moment, where land and property and landscapes of special interest are going to be carved up by that railway line. And coming back to the railway history, the money they're spending on it would probably completely reinvigorate the whole network, of greater value to a bigger proportion of the population than those who are simply going to knock a few minutes off their travel time in their commute north. We shall see. So on the right here now you can start to see people's fences and hedges, etc. And we're getting closer and closer now to what they call the basin, which is the end of the canal itself. And that's where the cauldrons of hell are. Keep watching. Another feature along here which I find interesting, quite amusing really, is these kind of tufts of grass. And there's quite a few of them around this corner. And if you had an imaginative mind, you could almost think that they were giants, submerged giants with their heads sticking out above the water. They're mop heads. Oh, we've got pigeons over there in the trees. Well, we're doing well with wildlife a bit this morning. More bird song. Another moorhen over there. Couple of big houses over there. I'm not sure what they were. I think they're now apartments. A few more submerged giants along here. 2 or 3. And up ahead you can see the town of Tivot coming into view. Hello. Good morning to you. We're coming up to another stone canal bridge, and there are a few more ducks on the left here. I've still got some cat litter. See if they come across. Yeah, here they come. I was going to say two males and a female. I think it's two males and a female. So I'm afraid we now have to start swapping country sounds with town sounds and getting more into the urban part of Tivot and coming up to, I think, a really nice canal bridge. Good morning. Hello. As you can see, social distancing is a bit of a challenge. Certain parts of the towpath. All the bridges have got names. And here's, I think this might be the loop that I was talking about, the Bishop of Exeter. But I might be wrong, but it is quite a big loop, isn't it? Good morning. So, we're now coming closer and closer to the basin and the cauldrons from hell. And you'll see on the left here that a lot of these houses are bungalows. In North America you'd call them single-story dwellings, probably. Why do I say North America? Because I've got two wonderful friends who live in Canada who hopefully will be watching. Bit of traffic coming up here, I'll keep quiet for a minute.
And it goes on for about 8 minutes.
You wouldn't think we're in the middle of a pandemic, would you? 2 metre social distancing was the law. Anyway, just looking across, not to pick up on the washing on the line, but it's kind of a Japanese, kind of Chinese style back garden. And it occurred to me that the local duck population, I'm sure they stay clear of roosting there, particularly on a Saturday night, in case the people who own the place are fancy some Peking duck. Morning. Morning. So it's going to get a little bit busier people-wise as we get closer to the basin, which is not that far now. Again, these back gardens are just really nice, aren't they? Kind of, they've got conservatories and lovely back gardens, palm trees, lovely. Mind you, if you sat out in your back garden, you've got all the walkers walking along the towpath, you get a sense of you being in a bit of a goldfish bowl, really, I suppose. On the left there you can see the Exe Valley, and Tivot is sort of nestled in the valley. Pretty clear this morning. Hello, you!
All right.
Yeah.
Come on, let's go.
Let's see how we get past these people. Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, this garden on the left, the They're obviously trained dogs. Morning.
Hi.
And you can see the sticks and stuff and the tunnels and stuff that they have to jump through. I've never seen anybody out there training the dogs to do that though. So that might have been something they were into for a while and I've stopped doing it. Of course, all those kind of events, gymkhanas, dog shows, all the rest of it have been basically shut down now for over a year. Pretty tough on that industry as well as all the others that have been really directly affected. This bridge is not quite as attractive as the older ones. Very functional. And this property on the left has just been built and it really is quite lovely. It's quite contemporary, isn't it? But it sort of fits in. I think it looks really nice. Wouldn't like to think what they're going to sell it for if it hasn't already been sold. I quite like this canal side garden as well. Done quite a bit of work here to really landscape it, and they've got shrubs and lots of plants, and they've got the grass manicured as well. It's really nice. Okay, more people getting out now, I think, to enjoy this. You could all call it late winter, early spring weather. Temperatures around 5 or 6 degrees, which is perfectly fine. Good morning. Hello. Morning. You hear the sounds of a primary school. Saturday morning. Oh, there's a moorhen on his own. Let's see if I can. There we go. They're so shy. Sometimes they actually swim away from food. If you're very quiet and you walk very slowly, sometimes you can encourage them on the bank and they'll eat food off the towpath. Okay, here's, I think, pretty well the last loop as we head up to the basin itself. Oh, I've got to stop and mention this a little bit to you. This green fence. This is called an embankment protection works. There's the sign. And apparently a colony of badgers dug deep tunnels threatening to break or breach the bank. And they had to come along and build artificial badger sets. so they could protect the badgers but not allow them to undermine the embankment. And apparently they used an expanding foam resin to do that, and I'm not sure whether you can see very well, but you can imagine water gushing out of the embankment would threaten the properties, and so they built it up, they put that steel fence in, and they planted a hedge along here, just the other side of this green fence, which will grow up in a couple of years, and then they'll be able to take the fence down, and the whole project will have been completed. The badgers will be happy, and we'll all be happy. Kind of a win-win, really. Oh, we have a swan. Let's see if I can track the swan. Wow, quite amazing how fast they can hoover up the food, eh? I'm not sure whether that's last year's or it's an adult that's been on the canal for a while. I know last year there were about 6 offspring from a couple or a pair that have been breeding up here. Well, I can't complain about the makers of this food. It's all floating, isn't it? So he or she now can kind of eat breakfast at her leisure. Right, we're approaching the moment you've all been waiting for. We're literally a quarter of a mile from the end of the canal and the end of the walk. Morning. Good morning. So I'm picking up the pace a bit here to get around this little last bit and get up to the actual basin itself, where we've got the cauldrons of hell and a few other points of interest before we wrap this walk up. I hope you've stuck with me so far. So up on the left, up on the bank, and not in the water, is one of the barges they use for the canal tours. And they've got two, the company who run this business, they've got 2 barges, one's still in the water and the other one's up there probably for some winter maintenance, and they're not motorised because they're pulled by heavy horses. You will have seen some pictures in the montage a little earlier in the walk. Next to it is the floating cafe, and they do a range of drinks, soft drinks, tea, coffees, pasties, snacks, and of course ice cream. And on the right here is the visitor centre, and these shutters pull back, and they've got a lot of exhibits in there. And coming up on the right hand side is their little gift shop, you could call it, where you can get your tickets, and they've got mementos and souvenirs and that sort of thing in there. Lovely door, kind of gypsy-ish door, and there is the other barge. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the furnaces from hell. And here it is. And oh, I'm in the picture. So you can see this is a very deep hole, and it's called a lime kiln, and there are several of them along here, and I'm just going to take you over to the panel here to explain what was going on here. So, Great Western Canal, and it goes back to the construction of the canal in 1814, and you can see at the bottom there what I mean by the cauldrons of hell. These lime kilns were all fired, and you can imagine the heat and the fumes for the poor guys working in these lime kilns. Now, up to the right of the information panel you can see an artist's impression of what a lime kiln is. So the kiln is loaded with limestone and coal in alternative layers. Fresh material is added as the kiln is burning. There's a flue at the bottom to remove the hot gases, which obviously the workers are breathing in. There's a stoke hole at the bottom. The burnt lime is removed from the bottom. A fire of wood and furze started the kiln burning. I'm not sure what furze is. There's a grate there to hold the unburnt material. So these were, so that the canal actually was used to bring the limestone down from the quarries, where it was put into the kilns here and burnt. And it says the kilns were lit and they might burn for 2 days, and it was a job of the burner to test the progress by pushing a long rod down through the kiln from the top. If the rod met resistance, then it was not yet cooked and burning would continue. Once sufficiently burnt to rid the lime of carbonic acid, it was withdrawn through 2 eyes or draw arches to the front. And this powdery substance was used, and it was known as quicklime, and it had 2 purposes. It was used as a fertilizer for farmers, and also it was used in the building industry as well. So it's a very important resource, commodity if you like, and a lot of the houses at that time here in Devon were, the walls were built with cob, which is dried mud really, and they used lime, quicklime, to seal the outside of the walls and to give them some waterproofing, I guess. I might have got all this wrong, but that's my sense of it. Anyway, here we are, the Cauldrons of Hell at the Grand Western Canal. Good morning. So in the summer this is a very pleasant place to come and sit, have a picnic, buy an ice cream, and it really is quite lovely. So here we are at the very end of the canal. This is called the Basin, and last year I think it was, they built a kids play area at the end here, which is really nice, so young families can come up and entertain their kids, sit by the canal. It's very lovely. So this is the main car park for people wanting to visit, and almost walked past one of the lime kilns. So a quick look in here. Get some idea of how extremely well built they were. Look at the ceiling, the rounded ceiling, and the flue at the top there. You can see that through the rails. As I pop through here, here is a kind of collection of the limestones. It's hard to believe how they move these. I mean, they're huge, aren't they? It says here, these Wesley quarry stones were placed here near the lime kilns by the Great Western Canal volunteers led by Dudley G. Weatherly in 1982. So these stones came from Wesley, which is 11 miles up the canal from where we are. So you can get some idea of the monumental physical work involved loading these limestones onto barges, and then with heavy horses bringing them all the way down here to the Tivot lime kiln basin to be burnt and turned into fertilizer and building material. A phenomenal operation, really, when you think about it. And here on the right we've got Tivot and Sea Cadets. This building was renovated in the last couple of years and made a lovely job of it, and it's very popular for youngsters. I know we're a long way from the sea, but they can pick up their skills, rowing, health and safety, etc. And the last thing to show you is, of course, the Canal tea rooms and garden, which is a lovely thatched building, and they really do have a lovely tea garden here. And again, they serve ice creams and teas and light snacks, and we've got some spring flowers there, some daffodils growing, so a nice ending. I wish I could invite you to join me for tea. So thank you for coming on this walk with me, and I hope you'll join me again.